Good morning. We'll be learning Tractate Shabbos. The name of the chapter is Amar Rabbi Akiva, Perek 9, Perek Chi, chapter 9, and page 83. Start from the top. Rabbi Akiva, but according to Rabbi Akiva, for what reason was an idol compared to a nida? Only to teach that it will generate carrying tuma. Carrying tuma is the key over here, and the same way that if you would be carrying a nida, you would become tameh, it would contaminate you. Similarly with carrying avodah zarah, lukshel and nevela. But then let the Torah rather compare an idol to a nevela. Why to compare an idol to nida? So Inachinami, the Gemara says, indeed it is true that the comparison to nevela would be the more precise one. Ella, however, nida ain't a levorin. Just as the tumah of nida does not apply to her severed limbs. God forbid if someone has a severed limb, that doesn't have the impurity of nida. So too, the tumah of an idol does not apply to these dissembled limbs. I guess avodah zarah, once you sever it, then those parts are not part of avodah zarah. But the Gemara in avodah zarah discusses all these things in detail of what will be considered avodah zarah, what will be not. Then regarding that which Rabbi Chama bar Guya inquired, avodah zarah yeshna levo, eina levo. He wanted to know when it comes to an idol, and the limbs of the idols are considered idols or not considered idols. It's considered avodah zarah or not. Tif shutlei me'ar ben Rabbanon ben Rabbi Akiva deina levorim. It says, let the inquiry be resolved. Both according to the rabbis and according to Rabbi Akiva, idol tumah does not apply to limbs. Why does Rav Cham bar Guya not bring this proof? Should have bring the proof from Rabbi Akiva and Rabbanon. Rav Cham bar Guya kerabon masni uvo la'alibud Rabbi Akiva. Rav Cham bar Guya taught the dispute between Rabbi Akiva and the rabbis, as did Rabbah. And he inquired according to Rabbi Akiva. He would agree, however, that according to Rabbi Elazar's interpretation of the dispute, both Rabbi Akiva and the rabbis agree that the law of idol tumah does not apply to an idol dismantled segments. Okay, parts that are not connected with the idols are not considered tumah. So we're holding a Meisive. You see it, Meisive?
Yeah, Meisive.
I'll be right back. The AC, I'll kick it up.
Yeah, I thought about that. I didn't know if it was me or the air.
That's good. It seems like I lowered it to 70, but it's on 74 now.
Yeah, it seems
I
kind
had
of.
72 last night. It was very cold.
Right, I just put it now because it's hot. So let's see if it's gonna bring you.
I thought
Okay.
about that before, but I understand.
Why not speak
know.
up? Meisive, they challenge Rabbah on the basis of the following brisa. Avodah zarah kisheretz, the tumah of an idol is like that of a sheretz. Umeshamshel kisheretz, and the tumah of its service items is also like a sheretz. V'akiva imer avodah zarah kinid.
But if you have a part of a sheretz on something, it becomes tumah. But if you break
That's the proof that they're trying to bring. It's saying the tumah of an idol is like that of a sheretz, and the tumah of its service is like that of a sheretz also. Now, Rabbi Akiva says no, avodah zarah is not like sheretz, it's like nida, right? Umeshamshel kisheretz. But while the tumah of its service is like that of a sheretz, it appears from this braita that according to the rabbis, the tumah of an idol is identical to that of a sheretz. An idol will not generate carrying tumah, Bishlam Rabbi Elazar Nicha. You understand the difference? If you say the Tumah of Avodah Zarah is like Nida, then carrying it makes you Tameh. But if you say it's like Sheretz, and carrying it doesn't make you Tameh. Bishlam Rabbi Elazar Nicha. This is understandable according to Rabbi Elazar's opinion, which fits well with this implication of the Bais. Ela leRabba, but according to Rabba, who holds it, even according to the rabbis, an idol will not generate. An idol will generate carrying Tumah. According to Rabba, an idol will generate carrying Tumah. Kasha, there is a difficulty for this Baisa contradict his opinion. Omar lechor Rabbo, mi alima mimasnisin. The implication of the Baisa, any stronger than that of the Mishnah cited above, the Ketani, for the Mishnah taught, the fallen walls, timbers, its stones, its mortar will generate tumah like a sheretz does. I establish with regard to the interpretation of that Mishnah, that what is meant by the phrase like a sheretz, only that an idol is like a sheretz in that it will not contaminate in the case of a placed rock. However, it will certainly generate carrying tumah in the regular manner. Here too, in the Brisa, the term like a sheretz means only that an idol will not contaminate in the case of a placed rock. It is not intended to entirely exclude idols from generating carrying tumah. The Gemara again challenges Rabbi interpretation of the dispute. An idolater, an idolatress, an idol, and the idol's service item. So the two players, idolater, idolatress, and idol, hein veloy seiton, they are tameh, but they do not generate tumah through their being carried. So you carry an idolater, doesn't make you tameh. Rabbi Akiva says, hein ve seiton, they and carrying them also makes you tameh, generate tumah through carrying them. Bishna Rabbi Elazar Nicha is understandable according to Rabbi Elazar's opinion, for it fits well with the Braisa's ruling. Ela leRabba, according to Rabba, who holds that even according to the rabbis, an idol will generate carrying tumah. Kasha, there is a difficulty for the Braisa. This Braisa contradicts his opinion. So what about an idolater and idolatress too? They are tameh, but do not generate tumah through their being carried. Vatanya v'dibru b'nei Yisrael, dabru el bnei Yisrael. Speak to the children of Israel. This is speaking about the Torah speaks about ziva tumah. Dabru b'nei Yisrael metam b'ziva v'enochim metam b'ziva. Children of Israel are subject to the contamination of ziva, but idolaters are not subject to the contamination with ziva. Aval gozol and shiuch hazov l'chol divreyen, but they. However, the rabbis impose a decree upon them, upon idolaters, that they be regarded as zovim in all matters. Whether they experienced a ziva discharge or not, this implies that the tumah of idolaters and idolatress is entirely identical to that of a zav. Just as a zav generates tumah by being carried, so too will an idolater or idolatress will generate tumah by being carried, which we call tumas maso in Hebrew. How then can our Brisa say that they will not? Rabba will amend the Brisa according to his reasoning as follows: Noch, even Noch is an idolater or an idolatress. And they are tameh, and they generate tumah both through their being carried and through their being upon a placed rock. Avodah Zarah, an idol, he ve'seisa avaloi even mesama shelo. When it comes to an idol, it is tameh, and it generates tumah through its being carried, but it does not generate tumah through its being upon a placed rock. Rabbi Akiva says, Avodah Zarah, an idol, he ve'seisa even mesama shelo. It, Avodah Zarah itself is Tameh, the idol. It generates Tumah both through its being carried and through its, if you place it upon a rock. The rabbis agree that an idol will generate carrying Tumah. They take issue with Rabbi Akiva only in regard to whether it will generate Tumah from upon a placed rock. Rabbi Elazar will amend the Bais according to his reasoning. And he Avodah Zarah, they are Tameh, and they generate Tumah both, idolatry and idolatrous, both through their being carried and through their being placed upon a placed rock. Avodah Zarah, an idol, he will say so. When it comes to the idol itself, it does not generate Tumah through its being carried. Rabbi Akiva says, Avodah Zarah, he will say so. So far, Rabbi Akiva is the more strict, is more machmir in this case, and he says that when it comes to an idol, it generates Tumah through it being carried. So the point of contention between Rabbi Akiva and the rabbis is whether an idol will generate carrying Tumah. All agree, however, that it will not generate Tumah in the case of a placed rock. What need is there to say further they are Tameh? If they contaminate through being carried, they're obviously Tameh. Idolater or an idolatress, whether they carried others, or whether others carried them to maim, the others are Tameh. If an idol carried others, they are Tahir. But if others carry the idol, they are Tameh. Meshamsheo, in idol service items. Whether they carried others or whether others carried them, the others are Tahir. Rabbi Akiva says, no, an idolater, an idolatress, or an idol, whether they carried others or whether others carried them to Me'im, the others are Tameh Meshamsheo, and idol service items, and whether they carried others or whether others carried them, Tahirin, the others are Tahir. So the Bais, in fact, does not say of the people and things mentioned therein that they are Tameh, but rather speaks of two sorts of carrying Tumah, namely ordinary carrying Tumah, generated by Tumah that is carried, and that known as Hesed of Zav. Hesed of Zav, which is generated when a Zav carries an object. The rabbis hold that although an idol will generate Tumah through being carried, it will not contaminate that which it carries. It generates you, but does not contaminate you. Rabbi Akiva holds that an idol will contaminate both one who carries it and that which it carries.
I don't understand. How can an idol carry something?
If they, let's say, make a cow as an idol, the golden calf,
okay,
and you're riding the calf,
it's carrying you. All right.
There you go.
All right. Great.
Use your imagination.
It wasn't working so good.
So the statement regarding others that carried the idol is understandable, since such carrying will generate Tumah is easily found. But an idol, here the Gemara asks you a question, Shmuel, but regarding the idol generating Tumah by performing Hesed or others, how is such a case is found? For Hesed is defined as an act of carrying, since only animate things can be said to be capable of the act of carrying, only such things can be included in Hesed. Accordingly, since an idol is inanimate, you can't. Most of the idols are inanimate, right?
Right, except we're going to talk about the.
It is by definition incapable of generating Hesed, meaning it can't carry you.
So they're asking the same thing I just asked.
That's what I told you.
Yeah.
Rav Yeva, so Rami the son of Rav Yeva said, Kedetnan, the case in which an idol will contaminate an object through hesed, through caring, as we learned in the following Mishnah. Hazav v'chaf muznaim, if a zav, person that has a continuous flow of emission, and he has this special tumah, doesn't exist so much in our times, but it was back then. If a zav is in the pen of a scale, big scale is one side of the scale, and then there is food on the other side of the scale. So now this person is impure, and there's food and beverages on the other side of the scale. Kora hazav tamein. If the zav weighed down his side, if he's heavier than the food and beverages, then he was able to transmit tuma to the liquids, and the foods and the liquids are going to be tumah. What about if the foods and liquids weigh down their side of the scale? They are torkohu hein tehorin. So what do we learn from this? We see from this brayso that a zav, a person that is tameh, is impure, will render tameh with hesed, with movement, even objects that are not actually above him, but are only supported by his weight. The fact that it's supported by his weight, he can transmit tumah to it, transmit impurity to it. This is because that the hesed, the movement that this brayso is discussing, is one that is not defined as an act of carrying. It therefore is not limited to objects capable of performing an act of carrying, but includes even object incapable of performing such an act. Even an inanimate idol will generate this form of hesed, this form of movement or tumah, impurity in articles that it supports. Accordingly, when Rav Ashi states that the brayso previously cited discusses hesed performed by an idol, it is this form of hesed which he refers. The scale, not isolated animals that were used as idols, but I guess an animal that is considered an idol, like in India, that they consider the cow, so-called holy cow.
Right.
So they don't ride the cow.
Right. But here we're saying that everybody.
Well, they can pull the cow and put things on it.
So we're saying, but here we're basically, idol worshiper is like equal to a goy now, right? We think that somebody that's not Jewish is an idol worshiper.
Oh, the language of the Gemara using Nochi as an idolater, but not necessarily that all goyim are idolaters.
I mean, I don't think so either. But I'm just thinking that if you had a fireman had to come and save you, and he carried you out, he's not, he's not.
According to many rabbis and even early rabbis, if you are relying on checks or relying on some kind of an income or relying that this guy will help you, it's also a form of avodah zarah.
Yeah. No, I'm just saying that God forbid you were in a fire and a fireman came and took you out of the fire.
Then what?
And he's not Jewish, but he's.
Oh, you're saying he transmitted tumah to you?
Yeah.
Assuming that he's an idolater.
All right, but okay. So
what if he's not an idolater?
I mean, now okay. I mean, we really don't have idolaters now.
If let's say that the cross is an idol, okay?
Right.
And he's wearing the cross while he carries you out.
Right. So you're getting tumah from them. But people, we're not. There's a.
They say that today is a symbol. A lot of people say it's a symbol, but
it's a machlokas about it.
It's certainly not a holy symbol.
No, it's not. I agree with that. I know that. I'm not like.
Yeah. So in light of Rav Ashi's interpretation of the aforecited brayso as discussing an idol's ability to generate hesed of zav or generate tumah, the Gemara now inquires after the authorship of another brayso, Keman Ozlo the Tanyo, whose opinion does the rule that is taught in the following brayso follow? Kol atumas amesitas tereros, any contaminations or any contaminants perform hesed on Torah objects, such as it says in number 4, such by suspending them in mid-air by means of a scale, or in the case of a person contaminated with corpse tuma who carries or moves another. Someone touched a dead person, and then he carries another person on his back. So
And it can be
transmitted to you.
right.
Except in the case of the hesed of zav, of all contaminants, he alone will render such objects tameh. For we do not find a companion to the law of the hesed of a zav anywhere in all the Torah. It is shared by no other contaminants. Let us say that this paisa is not in accordance with Rabbi Akiva. For according to Rabbi Akiva, there is also the case of an idol, which will render tameh a toher object that it supports. So if a ladder, for example, is being supported by a Buddha idol, or whatever idol it is, so the ladder becomes tameh because it was supported by the idol. Afilu tema Rabbi Akiva. No, the Gemara says no. You may even say that the Baisa does follow the opinion of Rabbi Akiva. Tana zav v'chol melee. However, the Baisa means to teach that both a zav and all who resemble him will generate tuma in toil objects. Not just a zav, but anything that resembles a zav, anything that is tameh,
So if you put
will generate tuma in toil object on which they perform as not just an idol, since idols are analogs to zav, right?
analogous.
Since idols are analogous to zav,
Yeah.
they too are included in the law of hesed of a zav.
So if you use the Buddha for a doorstop, like on a door like this, and then you
It says that we learned in Tractate Avodah Zarah that if you find an idol, let's say a Buddha is an idol, right? I'm not sure if everyone agrees to it, but let's say a Buddha is an idol,
say it for the sake of argument.
and you find it, and you chop off his head, and you use it as a door stopper or whatever.
Yeah.
It doesn't take away the impurity of it. Why? Because halachically, the one who created the idol needs to nullify it. He has to break it. So meaning, if you find a goy that believes in this, and he is the one that smashes the Buddha, that would take care of it. But for you to nullify, you don't have the power to nullify because you didn't create it. You need the one who believes in it to.
Okay. All right. Well, I can't remember that.
The tumor of an idol applied to a dissembled limbs, or does it not apply to its dissembled limbs?
Okay, now we're going to get into this.
The Gemara elaborates on the question: in a case where a layman, a regular person, is able to resemble the idol, you need not inquire. The Chemand Mechuberes Damifu, in this case, it is as if the idol were intact. Each segment will certainly generate tuma. Kiti Balach, when do you have a reason to inquire? In a case where a layman is unable to resemble the idol, in that case, you must inquire thus. What is the law? Do we say that since a layman is unable to resemble the idol, it is as if the idol is broken? It will not generate tumah. Or perhaps since the idol was not diminished, since the idol was not diminished through its dismantling, it is viewed as a whole and will thus generate tumah. So we have a different perspective of how to see it. But some inquire this way. In a case where a layman is unable to resemble the idol, you need not inquire. The Chamadim Isabo Domifo, in this case, it is as if the idol is broken. It thus does not generate tuma. Kisi Baruch, when do you have reason to inquire? In a case where a layman is able to reassemble the idol. In that case, you must inquire. Mai, what is the law? Since a regular person can put it together, can reassemble it, is considered as if it's already installed, it's already assembled together. Or perhaps now the idol is pulled apart and dismantled. So it's we would view the different parts of it as separated, not part of the idol. So the Gemara does not answer this question. Let the question stand, remains unresolved. What happened if it's an idol that is less than the size of an olive? Is it considered an idol or not? So Maskiv Rav Yosef challenged the inquiry, Lamai, with regard to what law you are inquiring. If you say that you are inquiring with regard to whether an idol smaller than an olive size is included in the prohibition against deriving benefit from an idol, it is obvious that it is included. Lo yalazuv ba'al ekron, for such an idol should be no different than zvuv. Zvuv is a fly, the idol of Ekron, which, although it is smaller than an olive size, is prohibited as a full-fledged idol. It says in 16, see note 18, the Pasuk cited states that the death of Gidon, the judge, the verse cited that upon the death of Gidon, the judge, many Jews turned to worship the idol Baal Beris. The Bible teaches that the idol Baal Beris and Zevuv were actually one and the same. Ekron was a city in ancient Philistia. Its god was an idol Zevuv. This idol was crafted in the likeness of a fly. Remember I told it's a fly? Yeah. Zevuv in Hebrew for fly. And the Zevuv is Hebrew for fly, and was thus obviously smaller than an olive size. Ramban from Rashi and Tosfos. Others state that Zevuv was actually a likeness of the tip of the male organ, since it was shaped according to the place upon which a bris milah is performed. It was known as Baal Beris. It was called Zevuv as well because it was equivalent to a fly in size. Since in idol worship, men take their idols as masters over them. That's why they use the word Baal. Okay. The Tanya. So it has been taught in a Baisa with regard to this idol. When the pasuk states, and then the Jews made Baal Beris for a god over them, Zevuv Baal Ekron. This is actually a reference to Zevuv, the idol of Ekron. Melamed shekol echad ve'echad also dmusi rose. The pasuk's reference to Zevuv as Baal Beris reflects the bond of love that existed between this idol and its adherents. Its use of this term teaches that each of this idol's worship or idol worshippers made a likeness of that which he feared, of this idol, Zevuv, umanicha b'teich kisei, and placed it in his purse. Kevan shezach, upon thinking of it, he would take it from its purse, would hug it, and kiss it. Since these people were so attached to this likeness, it is clear that it was an actual idol. We see that even an idol smaller than olive size is considered a full-fledged idol. and will consequently be included in the prohibition against deriving benefit from an idol. Obviously, then, this prohibition cannot be the subject of Rav Chodvei Bar Ami's inquiry. Ela linyan tuma, now regard to tuma, mai. What is the law? Kevan de itkish l'sheretz ma sheret b'chadosha aved zon v'chadosha. Just as a sheretz contaminates, generates tuma with a piece of the size of lentils, so too when it comes to avodah zar. Odin v'itkish l'meis, or perhaps an idol is compared to a corpse. Now meis b'chazais, avodah is b'chazais. Just as a corpse generates tuma with a piece the size of an olive, so too an idol will generate tuma with a piece the size of an olive. Amar Rav Ula Tashma, Rav Avi said, and some say it was Rabba Bar Ula. Come and learn the Tanya. An idol that is less than the size of an olive has no tuma at all. Shenema v'yashlech zaforo al kever b'nei ha'om. It threw its dust upon the graves of the people who had sacrificed to it. The pasuk juxtaposition of graves and an idol teaches that ma meis b'chazais avodah zar b'chazais. Just as a corpse will only generate tuma with a piece the size of an olive, so too will an idol only generate tuma with a piece the size of an olive. Therefore, when the rabbis decreed tuma upon idols, they took this verse as a cue to limit the tuma to idols that are at least of olive size. So the Gemara returns to Rabbi Elazar's interpretation of the dispute between Rabbi Akiva and the rabbis. For what reason is an idol compared to a sheretz? To teach it will not contaminate who carries it with carrying tuma. And for what reason is an idol compared to a nida? To teach that an idol tuma does not apply to an idol's dissembled limbs. And for what reason an idol is compared to a corpse? To teach that it will not generate tuma with a piece the size of a lentil. According to our laws, or all three analogies teach a leniency regarding idol tuma. But say rather that all three analogies come to teach a stringency regarding idol tuma. For these same analogies can be interpreted stringently in the following manner. For what reason did the Torah compare an idol to a sheretz? To teach that an idol will generate tuma with a piece the size of a lentil, just as a sheretz does. And for what reason is an idol compared to a nida? To teach that it will generate tuma even in the case of a placed rock, just as nida does. The Torah compared an idol to a corpse is to teach that it will transmit tuma by way of a roof, as a corpse does. We see that each of these analogies could just as well have been employed to teach a stringency regarding idol tuma. Why then do the rabbis employ them exclusively to teach leniencies? Tumas avodah zara derabbanoni. The tuma of an idol is of rabbinic origin. Therefore, when faced with a choice between using an analogy to teach a stringency or a leniency, lekula makshinan, we draw the analogy to teach the leniency. Lechumra la makshinan, but we do not draw the analogy to teach the stringency. It says in 29, just to summarize this subject, with regard to why, if this is so, Rabbi Akiva derives a stringency from the analogy to nida, even according to Rabbi Elazar, and both Rabbi Akiva and the rabbis do so according to Rabbah, Siyaba Ve'itubi, notate from Tosfos, also Rambam Chidush Haran, Ramban Chidush Haran, Ran Mahak here. Okay, the point is it's compared to according to Rabbi Akiva, it's compared to nida, that if you carry it, you become tameh. Okay, we'll start the Mishnah. You ready?
Yeah.
The Mishnah addresses the fact that sheep cannot be contaminated with tumah that is generated through contact. It seeks the source of this law. From where do we know that a sheep is not susceptible to contamination with tumah? The path of the sheep in the heart of the sea, once it has passed. Pasuk teaches that a sheep is like the sea, impervious to tumah. Wonderful. Good living on a boat. Living on a boat, you won't be tameh. What do you think?
But don't rock the boat.
The boat will rock itself.
Yeah.
We get used to it, no?
Yeah.
Where is the pasuk the derech onia b'lev yam is coming from?
The Proverbs.
Proverbs. Shlomo Melech, chapter 30, verse 19. The Gemara says, "Pshita onia b'lev yam." It's the Gemara says, what does he mean to say? What does the Shlomo Melech comes to teach us? It's obvious that sheep is in the heart of the sea. Why must this verse tell us so? Rather, the pasuk, through its juxtaposition of sheep and sea, informs us of this. Keyom, a sheep is like the sea. Mayam toy of sfinato. Just as the sea is not susceptible to contamination with tumah, so too is a sheep not susceptible to contamination with tumah. You cannot make the sea tameh. Okay, we're going to go to 83b4. Tanya Chananya Oimer Nilmedo Misak. Let us derive a sheep's both sheep insusceptibility to tumah from the analogy drawn between wooden vessels and a sack. Ma sack mitaltel mole verekon, just as a sack in its normal use is carried both while laden with other object and while empty, you still carry the bag. I've called mitaltel mole verekon, so too must any vessel be carried both. Bring a corpse to the sheep. That's a good question. David is asking if you bring the corpse to the sheep. Somebody dies on the boat. Then they will learn the Arba Amos is tameh. The 4 Amos is tameh, but the ship itself remains tahor. So too must any vessel be carried both while laden and while empty, in order to be susceptible to tumah generated through contact. Vessels that are not made to be used in this manner, however, will not be vulnerable to such tumah. La pukis fino denim taltes molev to serve. This serves to exclude a sheep which, because of its great size, is not carried both while laden and while empty, but only while empty. Chananya disagrees with the rabbis of our Mishnah as to the source for excluding sheep from tumah susceptibility. My benah, what is the practical difference between rabbis and Chananya? Ika benah sfina shelicher, as the difference between them is regarding an earthenware sheep. I never seen it, but earthenware sheep. Ever heard of earthenware sheep?
No, but they got concrete ships.
They do. That would be very heavy.
It would be.
Don't they make sheep from metal?
Metal, mostly. Metal and fiberglass and wood.
So, the rabbis who said that a sheep insusceptibility is due to the pasuk, a sheep in the heart of a sea, will say that even an earthenware sheep will not be susceptible. For an earthenware sheep too is included in the exposition of a sheep in the heart of the sea. But according to one Chananya, who said that the sheep's insusceptibility is due to the analogy limiting tumah to utensils that are like a sack, an earthenware, sheep will be susceptible to tumah. For the analogy to a sack applies only to utensils made of those materials that are written in the verse along with a sack. With regard to these utensils, the law is, if they are made to be carried both while laden while empty, yes, they will be susceptible to tumah. But if they are not carried in this manner, no, they will not be susceptible to tumah. But an earthenware sheep, since it is made of material that is not listed in the pasuk along with a sack, will be susceptible to tumah, even though it is not carried both while laden while empty. For since the pasuk does not share the characteristics of a sack, earthenware vessels need not share the characteristics of a sack. A sheep crafted of earthenware, even if it is of great size, will be subject to contamination with tumah. Now presents a second practical difference between Rabbi Chananya, rabbis, and Chananya. Alternatively, both of the Jordan River. According to the rabbis who says that a sheep's insusceptibility to tumah is due to the verse Oniya b'lev yam, a sheep in the heart of the sea, the verse in Proverbs. A boat of the Jordan will not be susceptible. How? Since this boat too is included in the exposition of a sheep in the heart of the sea. But according to the one Chananya, who says that the sheep's insusceptibility is due to the analogy limiting tumah to utensil that are carried both while laden and while empty, a boat of the Jordan will be susceptible to tumah. Since due to its small size, it too is carried both while laden and while empty. The son of Akavia said, why did the sages state in a Mishnah a boat of the Yarden is susceptible to contamination with tumah? Because people customarily load it with cargo on the dry land and then lower it into the water. Since it is thus carried even when laden, it is subject to contamination with contact-generated tumah. The Gemara comments on Rabbi Chananya and Akavio's explanation of this Mishnah. Rav Yehuda said in the name of Rav, Le'oilom al imna odom esatzmi beis hamidrash va'afilu shoachas. A person should never, you hear?
Yeah.
A person should never absent himself from the house of study for even one moment. For it was many years that this Mishnah was taught in the house of study. But its reasoning was not uncovered until Rabbi Chananya, the son of Akavio, came and explained it. One who had absent or absented himself on that day might have remained forever ignorant of his explanation. You don't know what you're going to miss.
Right.
So you got to show up. Be there. Having cited the above comment, the Gemara continues with a comment of a similar nature. A person should never absent himself from the house of study, no, ever refrain from studying words of Torah, even at the moment of death. This is the Torah, a man who dies in a tent. This pasuk teaches that even at the moment of death, one should be involved with the study of Torah. The words of Torah are not retained except by one who kills himself over the Torah. Zois HaTorah Odom Ki Yomos Bo. This is the Torah of a man who dies in a tent. The Gemara will now elaborate on Hananiah's opinion on Rava. Velichananyo tiltul al shvorim shmei tiltul. And according to Hananiah, who rules that a sheep that is carried, laden into the water is susceptible to Tumah, even if its carrying must be performed by oxen, it is considered carrying with regard to rendering it susceptible. Even a sheep so large that it is moved only by means of draft. By means of draft, animals will be susceptible to Tumah so long as it is meant to be carried both laden and empty. God willing, will continue tomorrow. Bruchim Tiyu.